So let's just start with like a timeline of your getting to know Chris, how you guys met, where you met, all those things. And let's just run. And I'm not going to ask you specific questions unless I think it's necessary. I'll let you just tell me your story. I think it's a little bit easier that way. So I just want to know how you met him, where you met him, how long you guys were dating, and those kind of things initially.
Okay. I think I met him sometime in June, probably early June. It might have been May. It was just talking at work. It was pretty casual. And he didn't have a wedding ring on his finger. And every time I talked to him, he didn't tell me that he was in a relationship. He didn't even mention his kids right away either. And then one day he told me that he had 2 kids. I was like, that's pretty cool. And started telling me about his kids.
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day too. So whenever that is it in June?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not good with holidays.
He told me he had kids, and then it was Father's Day shortly after that. So that's what I do know. And I was like, I thought it was cute. And then he's telling me about him. He's pretty excited about him. And then he mentioned that he did have a significant other. And then he told me that those 2 were in the process of a separation.
Did he mention the children's name or his significant other's name?
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while. And then I think he told me his kids' names pretty quick, but to be honest with you, on an exact date of when that happened, I don't know.
So can you just take us through kind of a little bit of the early part of how he courted you or you courted him? I don't know which one happened. How you guys got to know each other?
I guess we just started talking. He actually, so part of my job is to manage the gas monitors that we have. So Anadarko requires all of their field personnel to carry like gas monitor sensors for toxic gases, and it's my job to control the inventory, any issues, anything like that. And we were having some pretty serious like equipment issues, and we had numerous amounts of people coming in my office one day, and he happened to be one of them. And I'd seen him before, like they meet in the lunchroom, and that's where I go put my lunch in the fridge. So I'd seen him, but I didn't ever like talk to him. So that day we just started talking, and then every time I saw him in the hallway after that, and it was always hit or miss, like it wasn't an everyday thing, it was just when I saw him, we just started talking, and we just kind of had a lot in common and just hit it off, so we'd always have, pretty good conversations. And then, I don't know, one day he told me that he had kids and started talking about his kids, and then mentioned, yes, that I have a wife, but we're getting separated. I said, okay. And then,
when do you think that was?
When he said all that?
So specifically when he told you he was getting separated from his wife, was that within the first couple of weeks that you knew him, or was that later on? You said you met him around May or June. Yeah,
it was still in June.
Okay.
It would have been before Father's Day.
So had you guys ever gone out on any kind of date at that time? You just
No.
Conversing at work?
Yeah, that's all it was. And then, I don't know, we started hanging out. We hung out. We went to a park. Hung out at a park.
Let's go back real quick. So why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? Did he ask you out at that time?
No, he didn't. I think he was probably interested in me. And so he talked to me a couple times via his work phone, and I was like, no. Like, it was still very, like, friendly conversation. But then when I realized, like, this man is interested in me, I'm interested in him, this is personal, so we got away from the Anadarko thing because I really don't want those guys affiliated with any of this.
Basic conversation for a first date?
I mean, we kept it pretty simple, I guess, I don't even remember everything we talked about. We were there for a few hours.
Who was he aggressive? Was he mellow? Was he calm? Was he outspoken? Who was Chris?
I think he's an introvert. I would consider him to be like a pretty, I don't want to say he's a very reserved individual. I think he's probably more reserved around other people. I think he emphasized to me that one of the reasons that he really enjoyed talking to me is because if he felt like he could get out of his shell. he said around most people, he just, like, didn't really feel the need to like, talk and converse. And it wasn't just in his home life, just in general. It wasn't something where he's an introvert. And he said with me, it made him feel like he could really just start talking about things that excited him. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we had things in common. So with me, I think he was a little bit more outgoing, but even then, I would still consider him to be an introvert. I mean, not on the extreme end. If an introvert went to, like, 1 to 10, I'd put him at, like, a 4 or 5. So on the lighter side of introversion.
Pretty even-keeled.
Yes, like, really relaxed, like, all the time. He was never really, like, worked up about anything. Just
mellow,
chilled,
easygoing guy.
Very much.
Okay. And he was that way with you. Did he ever have any kind of? Did you guys ever have arguments? I mean,
No.
Pretty short relationship. No arguments during that time.
No.
Did he ever lose his temper at any time?
Never.
You guys never had a yelling match?
No.
So you never saw him upset or mad?
No. And there was a couple times that we had some disagreements on things that, as we, like, further progress into this story, you know, but it was never, like, I am very calm when I talk to people. It's, like, extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in, and he always was the exact same way. Like, always. Like, I never stressed anything. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him was the fact that he was, like, very open with communicating with me if there were any, like, differences on how we saw things or just, like, open-minded about things. It was actually, I personally thought it was kind of unique, because usually most of the men that I've ever met are typically very closed off, and I didn't get that from him at all.
So during your guys' dating time, did you guys spend most of the time at your place?
Always.
Okay, always at your place.
Or we'd go out, but I told Mark yesterday, he asked me if I went over there, and I told him about one time that I went over to that house. I've been to that house twice, but it was very, very brief, and it was not like an extended stay. I did not feel comfortable there, or, like, I just didn't want to be there. It's not my life. Like, that is somebody else's life and somebody else's existence, and I respect that. That's their space. And so I used to tell him, well, come to my house, because this is our space. This is my space. And so for me, out of respect, just for, like, whatever situation he had going on and the fact that it's not my home, I felt that it was better to be in my place. And I live alone. I don't have any roommates or anything, so it's pretty easy to do that.
So during June and July, were you aware that his family was not did you meet his children?
Nope.
During
I didn't want
June
to.
and July?
And he didn't ask me to.
Okay.
I mean, not that I didn't want to ever. It was just not now. It's like, you're not finalized with your separation, and not only that, we've barely been dating. Like, you can't introduce kids to somebody new in a situation like that. That's something that takes time. I mean, would I have liked to have met them? Of course. That would have been a great honor for me to have somebody introduce their children into my life, but not then. It was something that it was like, okay, well, let's see where we're at in 6 months. Let's see where we're at in a year. And if we're still doing this and you and me are still, happy with where we're at, and you think that this is something that is going to be long-term and is worth bringing your children into the picture, then yes, I would love to meet them. But it's like, not right now. You are still in this situation where you're not even completely out of it, and I'm getting in it, and that's not fair for them. And that was kind of the policy that I had with him, it was just like, yes, but not yet. So the second time I went to that house, I'm not sure what day it was, but it was the weekend of the 14th.
Of August?
July. I don't know if it was the 14th or the 15th. One of those 2 days. But we had went out, and we stopped there just real quick on the way back. And we were there not very long. But that time, I saw a picture of his wife and one of his kids. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, she's so beautiful. And I, took a step back, and I was just like, this man has a gorgeous house. He has beautiful babies. He has a beautiful wife. He has an awesome job. Why would he want to leave this? And I remember talking to him about it, and that was the first time that I tried to actually say, what do you think about not separating from your wife? What if you really try to work on this? And he had expressed to me that we've tried to work on this and it's not working, so that is why we're separating. And I spent some time, like, just, you know, kind of, because it almost made me feel bad, where I was, like, to the point where I'm engaging in a relationship with a man who, the way he described it, is in a contractual agreement, but was not in, like, an emotional relationship with somebody. And for me, the way I would have preferred to do this is to avoid it till that contractual agreement was also done, and he was done. And he could have approached me and said, I'm just had a divorce, you know, maybe we could take this slow, what do you think? But instead it was, oh, we're separated and we're working on a divorce. And that is the part that I feel bad about, because I should have waited on that and I didn't. And, you know, I was just like, well, they're already there. So, you know, but then being in a house, I was just like, why? Fix this. Find a way to fix this. Make it work, you know? And I was like trying to push him to do it, and he seemed pretty reluctant to do it. He didn't want to. And, I don't know, we were still seeing each other fairly frequently, but I kind of like backed away so we weren't hanging out quite as much, and we were still close, but it was just, like, I really wanted him to try. Like, I wanted to know that he tried and it didn't work. It just seemed like he had so much going on, and it was just beautiful, that I was like, why don't you just try this out, you know, and see if you can fix it. And he'd always be like, well, what about us? What about us? I'm like, don't worry about us. Like, that is more important. Like, try to see if you can, like, salvage whatever it is that you have going on with your wife. And you know, I always got the impression that he was a great father to his kids, like, always. And so, you know, and I was like, and be the dad that you want to be. I was like, and see if you can make it work. And he just, like, we kind of talked about it off and on for, like, a few weeks, and I was just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I think I was kind of, like, cold feeting about it when after I went over his house. And so this was, like, pretty early on. And then, he told me that, he went to North Carolina, and he was like, I'm going to talk to her when I'm in North Carolina and see if I can get her to do this, to, like, try to, like, rekindle the flame.
Okay, so try to salvage his relationship as you've been asking him.
Yes.
On Tuesday, which would have been the 14th of August, you had read some newspaper articles on the 13th and the 14th that regarded this case. You had also had a conversation with Chris at some point during the day on Monday. And on Tuesday, because of what you found, specifically what you said was, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you found out that his wife was pregnant.
Yes.
And you did not know that prior.
No.
And you found that out via the newspaper articles, and that caused you concern.
Well, I just realized that he was lying to me, and I was like, well, if you can lie to me about this, what else are you lying to me about? And it made me realize that maybe his wife was in danger at that point, and it was day 2, too, and she still wasn't home.
What did that cause you to do with your phone, though?
Oh, what? When I deleted those? Yeah. I was just kind of grossed out by him, to be honest with you. I was just like, I don't know what's going on right now, but you just lied to me, and I don't want to see this come over my phone anymore. So I removed it. So
you already said, but you removed text messages?
I deleted all of his stuff because he lied to me. I mean, that's what it was. It was the hurt that made me delete it. And then it was the lie that made me start questioning everything else he'd been telling me for the last few days.
And that's when you decided to come forward?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still in shock that this whole thing happened. That's why I gave him the benefit of the doubt for the first day, because I was just like, no way. Like, I didn't even think about that. I mean, murder was not on the top of my mind when somebody doesn't come home for an evening, especially if they just, like, had some sort of, like, heated conversation. It's like, okay, you guys are separating, you have a heated conversation, you leave for a night. Like, I didn't even think this guy killed his wife. I mean, that like, murder is on something on the top of my mind when I call one of my friends for 3 or 4 hours and she doesn't answer the phone. Like, that doesn't even process to me as, like, a real thing that is a possibility at that point. And so that's why I gave it a day. And then the second day I was talking to him, he was just like a hot mess, I could tell. And then with like the way he was talking to me, and then that's kind of when I cut him off and I stopped talking to him. And then...
So remember what you just said, and we're going to get to that, because that's probably a very important
yeah,
conversation.
so if you want to know days, I would probably honestly just start at like Sunday and work your way forward. I mean, all the rest of that stuff, it's just like the small talk of like, hey, this, you know? I mean...
And your relationship building through the...
Yeah, I mean, like, and if you go like maybe like a week further back, like there's times like I was trying to help him find an apartment, like just for him, not for me, but for him and his kids. To get set up, and like there's times where I'm like, well, where's your wife moving to? Like, how close is she gonna be to you? You should be within like 30 minutes of your kids, so they're close, and like you want to be close to their school and close to your gym, and like what's your price range? Like I was helping him get all of this stuff set up, and it was like in a very decent manner. And I don't know if all of that is in text. Some of it's probably on the phone. Like at this point, I've talked to him so much that I don't even know which parts are like verbalized and which parts are texted at this point, but we can figure it out.
Okay. Let's go back to North Carolina.
Okay.
He went to North Carolina and he was trying to rehab his marriage with his wife.
He said
do you know her name at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you okay saying her name?
It's Shanann.
All right. And do you know the children's name?
Yes, it's Bella and Celeste.
Okay.
Cece.
She went by, they called her Cece?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he went to, were they in North Carolina?
They were already there.
If you want something.
I don't know if my stomach will do that. Yeah, they were already out there. He just flew out there to go meet up.
Do you know why they were there?
They're all from there.
Okay, so they were there.
They were visiting her family for the most part until he got there. And then they still were mostly visiting her family.
Okay.
I know what we were talking about. North Carolina.
Let's, yeah, go back to North Carolina.
So, North Carolina. So, he still made very frequent communication with me when he was out there. And at one point, he told me that they sat down and they talked about it. And he told her that he wanted to either fix things or like to try to fix things, and if she didn't want to fix them, then they needed to like move forward with the separation and like actually file for a divorce at this point was the impression that I got from this, and was what he told me. And so he said that she was like pretty receptive to just not trying. He was like, she seemed like she just wants me to go. He's like, when she has her mind made up, she has her mind made up, and that's what she wants. And he's like, she doesn't want to try anymore. And he's like, and neither do I really. And he was like, it's done. And he's like, and then the next day, I don't even know what days these were. Sometime when he was out there, he told me, we're putting the house up for sale as soon as we get back. And I was like, whoa, that was quick. And he was like, it's her. She's ready to go. And I was like, okay. And so I left it at that. And then, he got back, and I started asking him, like, what are you going to do? Because the Colorado housing market is fire, and you guys are going to sell this house, like, real fast. And I'm like, you need to start looking for a new place to live. And I'm like, where do you want to live? And I was really trying to help him out. I'm like, do you want to get a house? Do you want 3 bedrooms so you have one and each of your girls have one? I'm like, do you want to... you know, like do an apartment, like what do you want? You know, where do you want to live? Because he's in Frederick, but that whole area over there is just like a bunch of small towns, and you can kind of just pick and choose. Everything's kind of, you know, and so he told me, well, I like Brighton, and I was like, okay. And then he told me he wanted a 2-bedroom apartment, and he said he wanted 1 room for him and the other room for his 2 girls. And I thought it was kind of cute. Like, I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, me and my sister had bunk beds, like, at my dad's house. And I was like, when we were little girls, and me and my sister were the same age apart as him and as his 2 daughters, you know. So I told him, I was like, they're going to love it. I was like, they might be, like, stuck in one room together. I was like, but they'll become, like, best buddies. And it was really exciting. Like, I liked helping him, and I just wanted him to, like, I don't know. This is what he told me he wanted. So I was like, well, I will help you do the research. But another thing that I really took care of was to be like, where is she moving to? I was never like, you know what, screw your wife, try to get full custody. None of that bullshit. It was always just like, you know, I'd ask him, I'm like, well, what kind of custody you guys going to have? Because he at work, they're about to switch his schedule. So right now he's like a Monday through Friday, and they're about to switch these guys to 8 days on, 6 days off.
That's tough.
That's awesome. And I was asking him, I was like, are you going to have your kids like on that set of days off? I was like, because that would work perfect, like 1 week on, 1 week off. And I was just like, you know, we just talk about it. And I'm like, what is your plan? And he's like, we haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do about the kids yet, but he told me, he's like, Colorado's a 50-50 state, and she's okay with everything 50-50. Like, he said that she was like on board with this because she wanted it too. Like, she was checked out of this relationship. So that was like how he made this sound, that it was like a very like kosher, we're done kind of thing.
Did you ever give him like books or articles or anything to read about saving your marriage? Did you ever provide anything to him like that?
About saving his marriage?
Yeah, like how to recover a marriage or how to save your marriage. You know, there's all sorts of publications and books out there.
No, but I did tell him, and I don't know if I did this through text or phone. That will be something you guys will, I'm sure, figure out. But I told him a few times, like, I think that you should take the time to read some articles about what separation does to kids. You know, and I told him, I said, when my parents separated, we were literally like 3 and 5. We were almost the exact same age as these little girls. And I told him, I said, you know, I was so young when it happened that it didn't really have like a big negative effect on me because I was so small that I didn't really process it too well. I was like, but I do have cousins that their parents got divorced when they were like 10, 11, and I think that it hit them a little harder. You know, and he's like, oh, they'll be fine, you know, and I told him, I was like, even though they're small and you think that they'll be fine, I was like, I think you guys should just read about it just so that you guys are prepared in case, you know, one of these two starts having a hard time with the fact that you guys aren't in the same house anymore, you know, and I would tell him, I was like, you know, there's pros and cons to it, like, because he was like getting ready to do it, and it would be like, you know, it's kind of cool having 2 Christmases, and, you know, like, your parents get to go, you know, be happy doing whatever it is they want to do with their lives, and they don't have to be in a situation that's probably not good for the kids because it's not good for those two, you know, but at the same time, it was like, just read. Like, that's what I always used to tell him. I'd always tell him to, like, I tell people to read about everything. Reading is so good for you.
So he, at this time, is telling you that, yeah, I am the guy trying to save the marriage and she doesn't want it.
That's what he told me. So, and and then he was like, she doesn't want it, so I'm not going to do it. And then it was like, we're filing for divorce, we're selling the house, and this was like all as soon as they were coming back from North Carolina, like boom, 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 boom. And so I took the time, and you will see that in the text too, where I I found this apartment. It was perfect. It was so cute. I was like, it's in your price range. It's like 6 miles from the gym. It's 23 miles from work. I'm like, you know, it's super close to Frederick. It's going to be by your kid's school. Like, this is the spot, you know, and I told him, I was like, I'll keep looking for more places. And he's like, well, there's some that I want to go see too. And he actually had me thinking that he was going to go look at these places this week. Before all this.
So this is fairly recent then.
Oh, this just happened, like in the last.
He's going to go look at apartments.
He wanted me to go with him.
When you say this week, are you saying
like this?
Monday
this
was the 13th.
Like this week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I told him, I was like, "Well, pick out a few spots, and if you want me to come with you, I'll go look at them." But you know.
You said earlier that he had never, or that the apartment wasn't for you and him. It was just for him and his children.
Oh yes.
It wasn't. You had no intentions of moving in with him.
No, I have my own spot. I still have a lease there till July, and even then, like, he never asked me to move in with him,
okay.
And I never tried to move in with him. I mean, I told him. I mean, I really try to take everything with this whole situation very slow. The only part that I screwed up on was the fact that he wasn't completely separated from her when him and I decided to spend time with each other. That is where I screwed up. But other than that, everything else, it was always like, you know, you build your life, I'm going to build my life, we will intertwine them, but I am not ready to, like, do this. And he respected that. And I even said that, and I don't know, that might be in the text, but said that too, where it's like, Chris, like, you need space. Like, you're just getting out of a divorce. Like, personally, I think jumping into a new relationship is a little quick. It's like, I was in a relationship earlier this year, and I think this is also a little quick. And I'm like, so why don't we take our time? And I'm like, if you guys end up doing a week on, a week off with your kids, I'm like, the week you have your kids, be with your children. And the week that you don't, I'm like, I don't even want to see you every day. I'm like, I think we should spend like a few days of that together. I'm like, because I like my space, and I think you need your space. I think you need your space to like develop your identity again and like get it back, because I think he's just been like so wrapped up in this whole thing that he's got in his own life and his life that he doesn't remember probably what it's like to like be single or have time where it's like just him.
Sure.
And so I was just like, like embrace that. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I really try to like take it smart with all that. And it was the same thing with his kids. I was just like, like, and we talk about things every once in a while where I'd be like, hey, if I ever meet, because like I have a lot of house plants. That's a good example. So I have a lot of house plants, and I told him, I was like, one day if I ever meet your kids, I was like, I'm going to show these girls how to like paint pottery and plants. I was like, I think they would love to see something grow that they built. I think it would be really, really cute. And like little stuff like that, but it wasn't very frequent. It wasn't, hey, we should get married, and hey, we should have babies, and hey, I want to live with you, and hey, I need to meet your children now, and let's cut the mom out. It was never like that.
And there was never any conversation about, we can't do this with her around, we can't do this with the kids around.
Never.
He never said that, you never said that.
No.